So the focus that I've had in this discourse game has some characteristics. First characteristic is that while I start with historical as a foundation, like in Breaking India, I always want to give the bulk of the attention in a book on what is happening today. So the historical is a way of giving background, but the goal is to discuss today's discourse, institutions, individuals, flow of money, who's doing what. Now this is very dangerous because it's safe to criticize dead people. They're not going to yell back at you or complain or do anything to you. So everybody can complain about Max Miller, and the post-colonialists love to complain about the British Empire because, it's dead, so who cares? Even the British don't mind the British Empire being criticized. A lot of them do it themselves. So the much more challenging is you criticize the living discourse and the individuals, not abstract, not in generic terms, but naming them. If you say so-and-so, who is the big shot in this place, has written these things, and here is my response to it, it takes a lot of courage. Because that so-and-so, by the very nature of being an important person, has a huge sampradaya or a huge following, huge gang who will come after you. That's their job. They come after you like a mob and do all kinds of things to try and bring you down. So the common trend is to avoid naming names, in which case you can be ignored. If I say, it has been said, but I don't say by whom, it has been said by some people that this and that about India, or so and so. But the smart thing for the opponent who is doing this stuff is to simply ignore me. Because I haven't really taken them on personally. I haven't really named them. The smart thing is to not give me importance. But if I say, Dr. Shinde, for example, is writing this, saying this, and here's my problem with it, it becomes very difficult for him to just ignore me. He has to, take on. So I have a style that invites people into the discussion, into the debate, and then once they're drawn in, I hope to have done enough homework that I can hold my ground. It takes courage to do that. So Gandhi was doing that with the British all the time. He was not talking in generalities, he was talking very specifically, exact things, policies, people, what he thought was wrong with them, and almost like had the audacity to invite them to take him on so then he could really stir up more visibility. I call this the principle of non-ignorability. Principle of non-ignorability. A lot of academics I know prefer to be ignored. They want to write something so they can come to a group and say, I've written it. But you ask him, you read it and say, but it is so generic, it is so abstract, it doesn't matter what you are, it's not even clear who you are talking about. Then they will say, I can't say it, but I'll tell you privately, I can't say it. But then you are not making any difference. There's no impact. What is the impact of that? So it has to be non-ignorable, which means it has to concern the nexuses operating in the present time, not just dead nexuses, present scholars, and not inconsequential people, but very strong mainstream people. Yeah? And only then it can be a game changer. Otherwise, if it's very goody-goody, there's a lot of scholarship that is good for dharma, but does not take on opponents. It just says, here is the meaning of Holi, here is the meaning of Diwali, and here is the nature of the Atma, and that kind of stuff. It's good, we need that also. But, if you are the underdog, if somebody has occupied Kargil, your territory, and, status quo is not acceptable for us. We cannot just say, okay, we leave them alone, they leave us alone, and we'll just go around doing good things and they'll be fine, they won't bother. At best, what it will do is they won't expand further. But you have to actually throw them out because they're sitting in our territory. To do that, you cannot be a goody-goody sort of approach. You have to actually take them on. There has to be a confrontation. You just cannot expect them to change their mind of their own, one day have a nice dream or come up with a good heart. No colonizer ever left because of that. Nobody ever left that because of that. So this ability to take on injustice, which is also the theme of the Mahabharata and the whole theme of the Gita, requires a certain kind of capability in the person who is doing it. And I feel that this combination of qualities I just mentioned is exceedingly rare, and it's very difficult to get people to actually stand up and do something. A lot of them will want to talk nicely privately, but in terms of doing it publicly, it's very difficult to get people. And I have friends who say, well, I just like to, do positive things. And we can have nice poetic statements that if you keep doing positive things, the world will change. You can have, it's a nice thought. And I always come back and say, well, if you want to have a garden, no matter how many nice roses you plant, it won't work if you don't pull out the weeds. You have to do the negative work of pulling out weeds, meaning what is dangerous, what is bad, you've got to take it out. If you're a surgeon, you know that after the disease is beyond a certain step, beyond a certain stage, then simply preventive methods are not enough. Just feeding him vitamins and playing good music and all that is not going to cure it. You have to get in and do some surgery. You may have to do some chemotherapy, because when the disease is past a certain stage, then the intervention has to be strong and direct and encounter with the disease. So our civilization faces many such very advanced stage conditions that we have. And taking these out it's not a matter of we just keep spreading enough love and enough good things about ourselves, and that will be enough, because the problems have to be dealt with directly by intellectual confrontation, intellectual debate. You have to, and to do that with living legends, living very powerful people, and naming them, and being non-ignorable. It requires a lot of hard work. Otherwise, you will get dismissed like that. You will be out for a duck. They'll just throw you out, and then it's even worse than if you had never done anything. So if you want to take a position and then withstand it, it's a lot of work. And we don't have enough people producing that kind of scholarship, the game changer kind. So let me tell you a little bit now about this Breaking India book, which is an example of this, what I just talked about. And I'm producing, there's another book coming out in September, October, on a different topic. Then 2 more next year. So I'm going to be busy for foreseeable future. These are books I started 15 years ago. I started writing on many things. And I never had the time to really publish, because most of these things I never published before. And I just kept adding my research database until a couple of years ago I suddenly realized that I'm getting old, and it's not like I can just go on doing research for fun. I have to get it out quickly. So I decided that rather than scattering my energies and my foundation funding this meeting and that conference, we did some of the great conferences, pioneering conferences, getting 30, 40, 50, 60 world-class scholars of certain fields together year after year, conferences with 500 scholars in India, conferences of that sort, very good academic people. But I decided that I cannot just be an event manager. I mean, I have to change the discourse, and such meetings do not change the discourse, because people usually come and present what they're already working on, nothing special for the event, but whatever they're working on anyway, they just present it. So you're not really producing anything new. And because they're coming from the kind of background I described, where they're not being direct, not critical of present living people, not naming people, so therefore they can also be largely ignored, it's too abstract. So I decided that some of this game-changing discourse I'll have to do myself. So 15 years ago I decided that I will start being a scholar myself also. And that's the work I want to publish, a couple of big volumes a year for the next few years.